Welcome to the Domain Name Wire podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Alleman, and this is episode number 540. A few weeks ago, domain marketplace platform Atom announced that it had become an ICANN-accredited registrar, and I knew I had to get Atom founder Darpan Munjal back on the show to talk about his company's plans. On today's show, Darpan talks about 3 overarching goals he hopes to achieve by becoming a registrar. He also gives updates on new features at Atom and provides new data, including that 25% of overall sales revenue is now coming from .ai domains. Stay tuned for that interview in just a moment. First, a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor this week is Sav.com and its for sale pages. Tired of paying high commissions when your domains sell through your landers? Switch to Sav and save. You pay just a 4% commission when your domains sell at Sav. They have fast payouts. In fact, if you sell a lot of domains through Sav, they'll even offer instant payouts. It's easy to list your domains, and there's a simple transfer process. In fact, if your domains are already at Sav, they transfer instantly. Learn more and start saving when you sell your domains. Go to sav.com/DNW/sell. That's sav.com/DNW/sell. I've had COVID this week and my voice is on the edge, so I'm going to skip talking about the news in the podcast. Of course, I was able to write about it, so go check out domainnamewire.com for all the latest stories. But let's chat with Darpan. My guest this week is Darpan Munjal. He is the founder and CEO of Atom. Darpan, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
So, a couple weeks ago, I saw this announcement that Atom had become an ICANN-accredited registrar, and I said, I've got to get Darpan back on the show because I want to learn more about this. My first thought was, well, yeah, it's helpful for a marketplace to be a registrar for managing transactions and stuff. So to date, you've been using just another registrar platform to do that?
Yeah, that's correct. We use multiple registrar platforms depending on where the domains are, where the buyers want the domain. So yes, correct. We rely on external registrars for that.
And so is your goal now with this registrar, one of the goals to be able to centralize that at a single registrar?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the most basic goals with this is to, leverage our own registrar for streamlining the transfers, the payment plans, LTOs, all that can be much more streamlined and automated. So that's definitely one of the core building blocks for what we're going to build.
Yeah, imagine having a lease to own transactions, having the domains at your registrar will make that much easier. But what surprised me about the announcement is it was like, no, we're going all in on this registrar too. We are looking to win over customers that want to keep their domains on our platform. So I'm curious what you think about the current registrar landscape is lacking and where you think you can fill a void.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's the main driver for how we started thinking about this. As you know, we have spent years building a domain marketplace, and that's built around AI, that's built around brand discovery. And I believe we have truly pushed the boundaries in that space, and we continue to do that. But over time, we have come to the realization that to truly innovate in this space, we need to go deeper, and we need to really start at the registrar stack. If you look at the landscape today, the registrars are very functional. They do the job. And the thing is, most of them were built for a different time and different expectations. For example, most of the registrars assume that the buyers know the exact domain they want to purchase, and they're coming in to basically register that domain or buy the domain if it's available through their aftermarket path. Also, many of them were built at a time where AI did not exist or was very primitive. So, we took a step back and we asked ourselves, if we were building a registrar today, knowing everything we know about branding, about aftermarket domains, and what's now possible with AI and what will be possible with AI in the near future, what should that stack look like? And that's how we are starting this. And there's definitely some really interesting aspects around the roadmap that we want to build. And we do have some fairly big plans to hopefully disrupt in the space. But, obviously it'll take some time and effort, but we truly believe this is a space which we need to really innovate from the ground up.
I'm hearing two things here. So there's the front end side, which is people coming in. They might not know the domain they're looking for. They might not even know the keywords in the domain, which is something you've shown with AI with Atom. But then, so there's the front end side and then the back end. Do you think AI impacts the back end? By back end, I don't mean the technology, what we as customers see when we're managing domains and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot that can happen on the back end, both for buyers and sellers, right? Starting with the moment you add your domains, can the AI help you understand what the value is for those domains? We built a lot of disparate tools like the appraisal tools using AI. We have built tools that can help both sellers and buyers create more content for these domains. So having all of that easily integrated on the back end, both from sellers as well as buyers. If you think about it from a buyer point of view, many of them want to not only manage their domains, but many of them want to understand the trademark risks with their domains. Many of them want to visualize what that domain might look like visually on a brand. So if we can have a place where they can do all that fairly seamlessly using AI, that's one of the layers that we want to build. There's a lot more besides that, but that's the core building block, is making the whole management aspect as easy as possible, not only from the listing side, adding domains to submitting them to marketplace, letting them AI understand which ones of them have a strong selling potential. So there's a lot of small tools that we can easily integrate into that experience that will make this process much more seamless.
And you recently posted a job posting for someone to lead registrar. Have you found someone for that, or is it still open?
Still open. This is a very critical role. So definitely a very important role for us to fill. And we are taking some time to find the right person. But yes, it's still open.
Tell me about what the role is and what you're looking for in case someone listening would be a good fit.
It's a role which looks at two things. First, obviously, the critical aspect is helping us build this next generation registrar. So they will be involved in the whole build out aspect, really thinking from the ground up, what capabilities should this have? How are we going to solve some of these bigger goals that we are looking to solve? Interfacing with different registries, working with ICANN, all the agreements. So there's a lot of build out related stuff. And then once we are live, it's more of the operational, leading the team that will actually help us manage this registrar in a fashion that is seamless, that's very efficient, and basically serves the buyers and sellers that will be using this.
Okay, so you're looking for someone who has experience at a registrar, probably has experience with all the ICANN side of the business. Basically, someone to run it. Let's just call it the CXO of the registrar kind of thing. I don't know what your title is for it, but they're effectively running the registrar. Is that?
That is correct. Yeah, they're basically effectively running the whole operations of the registrar.
Okay. So anyone who has experience with that, thinks it might be a fit, can reach out to Adam about that. It seems like this would take a long time just to get off the ground. It seemed like you had an aggressive, hey, it's going to take a few months in your blog post, but announcing the registrar. I mean, realistically, will customers start managing domains on this platform sometime this year?
Yes, that is the goal. Definitely this year. Now, there will be layers to this, just like we do in the marketplace. We incrementally add more features. We basically will start with something that has kind of the core building block, and that is the goal for us to launch that this year. But then over time, we'll continue to add more features. Just to step back, the way we are looking at this roadmap is we're trying to answer 3 or 4 key questions. And we want to make sure that those questions are addressed in this roadmap that we will be launching. The first one is, why can't a domain sale go from the purchase to payout in less than 60 minutes? Because if everything is automated, there is no reason for transactions to be delayed or take multiple days. So one goal that we have is to allow super fast domain transactions as people transact through the registrar and through our marketplace. The second is, how do we maximize the distribution? I personally believe that the domain should go beyond the 4 walls of a marketplace or a registrar, and they should go closer, as close as possible to where the buyers are hanging out. So as part of this, we want to build a open distribution network, which really will allow these domains to get visibility beyond our marketplace, beyond other registrars that we partner with, but also get deeper into the whole startup ecosystem. And we've already done a lot of work in that area, and this will allow us to accelerate that. And that's definitely part of the goal, is to increase that distribution significantly. And by distribution, I'm not saying that all the domains are available as a searchable thing where buyers go. They don't necessarily need to know what domains they should be buying. They should be able to browse our catalogs in a meaningful way, interact with them to help find the brand name that they're looking for in places where they typically would go to. So whether they're, registering an LLC, they're raising capital, they're building their pitch deck, they should be able to browse these potential options for their business without expecting everybody to come into our platform to discover them.
Okay, so this goes beyond just like the existing like Cedo MLS, GoDaddy system, where I know some of these are non-registrar sites too, but beyond that to a startup site, to a business that helps you form your LLC, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. There's a lot of places where entrepreneurs go as the first step, but they don't necessarily have to be registrars, and they don't necessarily have to be places which we typically expect buyers are searching for domain names. So I think that's what we are building, is just a unique network which can really increase the distribution of these domains. And the third is a question that, has been discussed quite a bit by people who have been investing in domains. And that question is very simple. Why shouldn't the original owner share in the upside if their expired domain sells in auction? They invested in the domain, they paid for renewals, and at some point they decided to drop it. So if there is some meaningful revenue that comes from that sale, there should be some participation by the actual domain owner who was involved in that. So we are definitely going to build a component here that will allow for that to happen. And as an aspirational goal, just to take that one step further, the aspirational goal that I have, and I think we'll have to see how far we go there, is can we build a model where sellers can actually recoup all of their renewal fees by a combination of expiry revenue, by some sort of subsidized commissions or some other aspects that we build into the marketplace, where the combination of net benefit they will get by participating in this registrar allows them to recoup most or all of their renewal fees that they're paying on their domains. Now, that's very aspirational. I will be honest, I don't know if we can get there, but that's what we are starting with as a goal that we want to think about as we build out the roadmap.
And I know there's been at least one registrar that has done something like this, but it was short-lived. And I'm not aware of any that are currently sharing in that expiry short of owning your own registrar. So this will be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, anything else in the registrar before we move on?
No, I think there's a lot of features we are thinking about, but a lot of that is, right now we're literally just building out the roadmap. So as we get closer, I think it'll be a good opportunity to share some of that more specifically around what would that mean for sellers, what would that mean for buyers. But yeah, I'm truly excited about the opportunity and what I think we can build, but we're just going to take a little bit of time to build it the right way.
Sure. Okay. I want to talk about some features that you've announced over the past 6-7 months. One of those back in December, I believe it was, you introduced minimal landing pages. So taking a lot of the stuff off of your pages, there's a lot of stuff on there. Some of it's cool, but it can be distracting. I'm curious what sort of results you're seeing from that now after, about 6 months.
It's an ongoing experiment, and interestingly, what we are finding is there is certain types of domains that do a lot better with minimal landing pages than others. And by that, what I mean is domains that inherently explain what they are, meaning if the domain is fairly descriptive enough, what we are finding is that the STR for those types of domains is better for minimal landing pages, obviously, because they don't need as much push for descriptions and possible uses and all that stuff that we show on a regular landing page. And as a result, they're driving better conversions. However, domains that may be a little bit more towards the brandable side, more extremely towards the brandable side, where they do need that extra push, where they do need that extra description or a story, I think that's where we are seeing little bit of a mixed result. So I would say the jury is still out whether you should use the minimal landers or the more traditional landers that we have. But one thing we have done is we have taken some of the things that we found working really well for minimal landing pages, and we have put them or adopted them back on the main landing pages as well. So the look and feel of these pages is now very close to each other. However, obviously there is extra content that we show on the regular landing pages to allow buyers to visualize what that domain could be about.
This is interesting because we're talking about a lander. So someone has gone ahead and typed this in, right, before they went to it. But you're still saying as a brandable that this person has thought about having that extra description and brand story and that sort of thing might help?
I think that's where I think there is a incorrect assumption. The person doesn't necessarily type that domain name to get to the lender. They are likely coming from the search and discovery path in the marketplace. So they may be browsing, they may have searched for a keyword, let's say yoga or fashion or any such keyword, and they see a bunch of names. They see a few of them as interesting and they click on them. But now the lender has to do a job in terms of convincing the buyer to move to the next step. And that's where, if the domain is more on the brandable side and the description conveys a story or an angle that they didn't think about, that might push them in the direction of moving forward with that domain. So if somebody has already thought through the name and they're simply typing into the browser and coming in, then yes, a minimal lender will likely be a better option in that case. So the names that are likely to get more type-in traffic on their own, and the real goal is to truly convert them to purchase, having less distractions obviously is the right thing. But people who are still unsure, people who are still looking at multiple options, some of these additional aspects can actually help the buyer move to the next step. And the second related aspect is the lenders that do have this extra content tend to do better from an SEO point of view. So if somebody is just searching for the SLD without the actual .com or the extension, and they see that lender come up and say it's for sale, now some of those sales do come in through that search path. So obviously having these names indexed is a good thing.
Interesting. I wonder if there's like a tech solution here where someone types it into their browser, right? So there's no referrer at all. It goes to a minimal page. If it's clicking through from the marketplace, or if there's a way to do it, the search throws a loophole into that, right? It'd be easy to do it if they're originating from the marketplace, but it's a little, the search side adds something to that. So interesting. But right now, so it's almost, you need to make this manual decision on each of your landing pages, maybe based on the type of name.
Yeah, you can either do it for the whole portfolio, or you can decide to do it for certain types of domains within the portfolio. Now, we're going to keep testing this. And at some point, I'm hoping we'll get to an answer, just like you're saying, maybe there's a path that we define that we know consistently performs better in favor of one type of lender versus other. And in that case, we may just allow sellers to just set that option to pick the best one for me. And that way we can maximize the sell-through rate.
More recently, you announced the track price feature. Tell me how this works, and I'm curious what kind of uptake, or if there are any early data you can share.
Yeah, so the track price is basically for buyers. If somebody comes into a domain and let's say they have some interest in that domain, now they see a very clear option on that lender which says, hey, you can track any updates related to this domain. If the price goes up or down, we will notify you. If it goes on a discount, we will notify you. Or even if it sells, we'll notify you. So you can cross that off of your list. It creates a win-win for everyone involved. And obviously for buyers, it's a good thing, because now if I just came into a brand name or a domain name, I'm browsing multiple of them, or I'm still researching, it gives me a quick way to just stay engaged with that domain and get updates on it. On seller side, it provides a very clear intent signal, right? It shows to the seller, like, who are the domains, which are the domains where we are getting real interest from actual buyers. And secondly, what actions can I take now to using that intent to convert that into a sale? So then they have the option they can either do nothing, or they can schedule a price increase on the domain, or they can apply a discount, or they can simply update the price. Any of those actions will trigger an email to the buyer. And that brings the buyer, again, connected. More of them will likely at least open the email, check what's happening, and some of them will come back and say, hey, I was actually looking to buy this. We're already seeing some of that happening anecdotally. Now, it's still new, so I don't want to claim that's an actual stat, but we are seeing a lot of buyers who are coming back and saying, hey, I was tracking this. The price just suddenly went up. Can you please honor the original price I was looking at? And that in itself, the discussion is not about offering a discount. It's about honoring what the price was to begin with. And oftentimes, sellers are open to that because they just did the price increase. So I think it just creates an additional mechanism for having that dialogue. It, at least anecdotally, is working really well in terms of buyers. There's a lot of buyers who are clicking on this track price option. There's a lot of sellers who are using this to apply discounts or increase the price. And in the end, at least anecdotally, we are seeing that result into more sales. It's similar to what Google Flights, if you go there, you can, you're tracking flights and you can say, hey, send me alerts if the price goes up or down. And it just is a helpful feature for anyone who is serious about that purchase.
So I'm looking at my Atom account. Where would I see if someone is tracking a domain price?
So first of all, you'll get an email from us telling you that, it's happening for that one domain or multiple domains. And second, within your marketplace listings, there is a filter option which you can click on to say, hey, show me only the domains where people are tracking prices. So you should be able to see just that list.
So if I get an email, then I can then decide, hey, okay, so this person might be interested. Maybe I wait a few days or longer. And then so if I schedule a price increase, I'll get an email that said, hey, this domain's about to go up in price.
I think that's the best action most people should take is don't change the price, just schedule the increase. And yes, that will trigger the email to the buyer, which will say, hey, this domain that you are tracking looks like the price is going to go up in 30 days. So you have a short opportunity to buy it at the current price. And that in itself is a strong reason for people to come back and purchase. I think that's one of the best action to try. Now, obviously, I don't have enough data at this point to say statistically if that's the best option, but logically that seems like the best option. It makes sense to
me, right? Before lowering the price, may say, hey, the price is about to go up if you're tracking this. So talk to me a little bit about, you've embraced AI since before we all started talking about it 2 years ago now, when ChatGPT came out. It's funny because when you were talking about it early on, I was like, yeah, this is all marketing spin. But you were actually using it. And now that we see what AI can do, it's pretty effective. So what are some of the advancements that you'd say over the past 6 months or so that you've made from an AI standpoint?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work in that space and obviously continue to do more. But, one of the most important thing, which is not very visible, is we have changed how our search works on the site by leveraging AI agents. And that means every day we have multiple agents who are browsing the marketplace just like end users would. And they're ranking the results based on how close that search result is to the intent that they had when they search for certain keywords. And as a result of that ranking, we are updating the actual results in the marketplace on an ongoing basis. So it's almost like a dynamic, fast-moving, self-improving marketplace, which is leveraging a lot of AI on the back end, agents who are thinking like end users, and it's helping us, improve the actual relevance. And we are seeing that in the actual bounce rates of people who engage with search. We are seeing that in the time spent on the site. So all those metrics are showing a positive movement after we deployed these agents that are making the search a lot more relevant. On the presentation side, we've done a lot of work. We now have some fairly advanced AI models that can help you at one click generate a fairly strong logo, a lifestyle image, a billboard image, a merch, just to really bring that brand name to life. You really need to do. Earlier, there was a lot of prompting you had to do and provide a lot of feedback to improve that. But now the AI is advanced enough that it is now able to, just looking at the domain, can come up with a fairly high quality visual that can bring the domain to life. One thing related to that we also launched was these AI audios. We call that domain talk. And they truly are more audio snippets that really tell the story of the domain as an audio. So it basically sounds like a human voice, which is talking about what that domain could be a good fit for. It's really telling you a story that with the goal that you will fall in love with the domain. And what seems to be happening is a lot of buyers are actually asking us to download these audios that they can actually include in their own pitch decks to their kind of investors or their partners, because they're finding that they're very compelling and they're helping them visualize why that domain could be a good fit for their use case. So we're going to extend that further. We're going to actually create like something like a brand book where people can actually download the entire presentation for that domain that they can then just take to whoever stakeholders are to basically help convince them to buy that domain. So I think there's a lot more we will do, but it's certainly it's working in favor of selling more of these domains, because again, for brandable domains, a lot of this is very important for people to really fall in love with that brand, to really see how that brand can tell their story and align with their vision. And some of these tools can be very helpful in there.
So I've seen a few people lately on Twitter and other sites talk about how this can create challenges, right? Because it's a computer-generated content, whether it's a logo that might look like a company with a similar name or a description that's like bang on for a potential trademark infringement. What's your take on that? And what do you think your responsibilities are as a marketplace? What do you think the responsibilities are of the domain owner there?
I think it's a great question. I think just like anything, this space is improving every day. And where we started, there used to be a lot of that, right? Where the AI will, if the brand name looks very real, similar to another company, it'll pick up some aspects of the company and include that in the description. And what we are doing is we're building a lot of feedback loops on our side to minimize that. Now, having said that, there is always that possibility, right? Any content that gets generated, at the end of the day, I think it's important to review what's being created and does that truly convey what you want it to convey. It's a tool. It helps you create a lot of that content fast, but at the same time, it doesn't take away the need for reviewing that to make sure that it aligns with saying things in a way that you would want it to say. So I think there's definitely some feedback loop that we are building to continuously train these models to eliminate or avoid as much of those issues as possible. But there will always be some that go through. And in those cases, it's still important to review what's being generated and make sure it's valid.
Yeah, I think I've seen some cases of things that could be problematic. I'm not aware of, say, a cyber squatting dispute that has been filed based on any of this stuff. Sure, it'll happen at some point, but...
Yeah, in fact, what we have found is there has been a couple of instances where there has been potential disputes, but most of them were the sellers basically uploading a logo that looked very similar to a big company or talking specifically about a company. So I think a lot of that has been more human than AI, but there's always that risk.
Let's see, I want to be mindful of how much time we have left, and there are a few things I still want to talk about here. I know at the time of recording this, I don't think you've announced this yet, but you've improved the self-negotiation data and how that process works. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we are in the process of rolling this out this week. So hopefully by the time this goes live, that will already be announced. And that tool, so we are really revamping the whole negotiation interface and the process that buyers and sellers take. As sellers will receive these offers going forward, they will see a very robust set of insights, including, again, an AI-based lead scoring that tells them a clear score about how strong do we think that lead is, how serious that do we think the buyer is. And we are taking into account several signals using, and even sellers will be able to see that. For example, did the buyer use a disposable email or a corporate email? If they used a corporate email, how is the domain authority of that domain that they use? Is it a serious company, a big company, a small company? Do we have a LinkedIn information about the buyer? Do we find a profile on LinkedIn? Do we know if the buyer's title is like a CEO or a C-level decision maker kind of title? So all that, there's a lot of signals like that we are going to start sharing with the sellers, as well as including that into our lead scoring that will help sellers understand a lot more about who these inquiries are coming from. And then as they're responding to them, we've also built some AI tools that will help them improve on their response. For example, a seller can simply type, oh, it's a lowball offer, simply politely decline. And then the AI will just take that input and generate a much better response. Or they may just have a one word, my floor is 1,500, and the AI will take that and create a much more relevant response that, given in the context of all the discussions you've had with the buyer, it'll take all that into account. It'll help you draft a response that it thinks will help you maximize the outcome of that sale. So I think there's a lot of these things are in beta and we will improve them, but I'm really excited about leveraging some of that because we are internally starting to use a lot of that for our own internal negotiations with the buyers as we get some of those for our premium listings. And we're finding these to be very helpful. And we want to open that up to sellers as well.
Great. I want to ask you, we see AI, we've talked about AI on the show, but .ai domains, I keep hearing about people who've sold theirs at Adam. Can you quantify for me what you're seeing from .ai domains?
Yeah, there's been a clear increase in the demand for .ai domains. Interestingly, up till about a couple of years ago, 90% of our revenue used to come from just .com, and the 10% was everything else. As of today, as of this year, .ai itself is about 25% of our total revenue. Wow. So it's a very significant increase. And now that's mainly in the area of strong one-word .ai domains. Still, those are the domains that are in very high demand and are claiming, they can, certainly many of them are selling in six-figure range. But we are now starting to see more openness towards strong two-word combinations in .ai as well, even 3 letters. So there's definitely a uptick in demand across the board. However, obviously, just like anything else, the name has to make sense in that industry. If you're thinking about a two-word domain that will do well in .com, let's say for a spa or a pet grooming business, obviously that will not be a good fit for a .ai type of domain. So I think that's still important, but clearly there has been a big increase. And I think it's definitely something that's not slowing down anytime soon.
And from a unit volume perspective, I assume, no, that's a much, much smaller number of actual domains sold as a percentage of your total.
It is, because on an average, our AI, the ones that are listed are either 5-figure or 6-figure sales. So in comparison to in .com, a lot of the domains that are selling are in the 2,000 to 5,000 range as well. So clearly there is a difference in the unit volume.
Okay. I want to ask about another piece of data you put out this year. You mentioned that domains with logos achieve, I think it was a 1.6 higher sell-through rate compared to those without. And you studied that over 12 months. Someone commented some criticism of this, saying, well, if you're putting a logo on your domain, then maybe you're picking your best ones, and maybe this isn't all in a vacuum. But I'm curious kind of what your take is on that and what you think of the results and what it means to you.
First of all, this analysis that we did was we excluded all our premium listings because by definition, all of them get a logo. So that we didn't want to dilute the data in any way. So this is only the standard listings, which by definition don't have a logo when you're listing the domain. And then we picked the ones which had a logo and compared them to the ones that didn't over a 12 months period. And clearly there is a significant increase in sell-through. Now, to some extent, that feedback is valid, that some people there is a selection bias. Maybe people are putting logos on some of their best domains, and therefore that's causing a higher increase in sell-through. But many sellers on our platform, they don't take the time to only do the logos for 3 domains out of 100 or 5. Many of them either do it for their entire portfolio or none. So I think while there's some of that is valid, but if you just look at the aggregate of the data set that we actually looked at, we're talking upwards of 6 figures in terms of domain names. Probably about, I would say maybe not, about 70 to 80,000 domains that we analyze. So I think it's still a fairly large sample size. And many of them are from sellers who have assigned logos to all of their listings. If you're just looking at that, yes, there will be some noise, and maybe this 1.6 is not 1.6, maybe it's 1.4. But the bottom line is, the takeaway is that the logos do help in improving the sell-through for the domains. Now, if you're selling, let's say, geo domains or certain types of domains, maybe there is not much help, right? Maybe those domains are so self-descriptive and are so specific that a logo or not will not make much difference. But on the whole, as we looked at this data, we definitely saw an increase in the overall sell-through.
Yeah, that's helpful. One final thing to end. I think we think about domain buyers. Are they buying our domains because they've thought about it, they come, they just want to buy it, versus are they being sold on it? We've already talked today about some of the things you do on your landing pages and such that can help sell the domain name to the person. One of the interesting things, though, that you've talked about over and over again is that how when people come in, they aren't even necessarily buying, the final domain they buy doesn't even necessarily have the keyword they search for. So can you quantify a little bit how, maybe what percentage of domains are like the person coming in for the exact one, that sort of thing?
Yeah, this has always been a hard question to answer, just because the typical time frame a buyer has from buying a domain or from discovering a domain to purchasing it, there is at least a 10 to 15 days gap in most cases. And therefore, there is this issue of attribution that comes in. The buyer may have discovered the domain in our marketplace, but 10 days later, they type the domain directly in the browser and they end up buying it. So if we just looked at the more traditional tools, that sale may have looked like it came from a direct hit because maybe their partner bought it, maybe their finance person bought it, but the original discovery happened from, or maybe they saw it on mobile and they bought it on desktop. So all of those things could happen. So what we did was we've started asking buyers that question right after they purchased the domain. How did you think of this domain? Did you have this name in mind when you came to Atom, or did you actually discover the name on the website? Because that is the most direct way to get to that answer. And what we're finding, and again, this is a data set that we're going to keep building over time. So far, 65% of buyers who answered that question have said that they did not have a specific name in mind when they came to Atom. versus the ones that they actually had a name. Now, this one, I'm specifically talking about premium listings, because for standard, I believe, and I think we'll need to do a little more digging in the data, I think that number will be a lot lower. I don't expect 65% of the names to be discovered through the marketplace for standard listings. I think a lot of names, especially since many of them are not being promoted as aggressively. But in this scenario, this is a fairly interesting insight. If 65%, more than a third of the domains are being, or more than 2/3 of the domains are being discovered, not thought about originally, I think that is a meaningful data point that basically explains why some of these things are happening, where buyers may be searching for a word, but they're not buying a domain that includes that word. A lot of this is discovery led. And I think it has a lot of implications around how sales happen in the area of brandable domains.
So that does make me want to just clarify something, though, because you've got your premium domains, you have standard, and now you have this new plus listings. Are all of these, if someone searches they go to adam.com, they type in what they're looking for, will all of these show up or just certain ones?
Yeah, so at this point, everything is searchable in our main marketplace. So there used to be a time where we would only allow searches for premium listings. However, we do prioritize the results, which means that if you search for something too broad like tech, you'll see thousands of premium listings before you get to your domain that is standard, which also matches that tech category. But if it's something a little bit more specific, then yes, that standard listing could even show up on the first page if there's not enough premium listings that match that buyer's intent.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay. Wow, lots going on. You always have a lot to update on here. So I'll be excited to watch these things as they go throughout the year. I'm really excited about this lead scoring because, a lot of times you go in there and you're like, yeah, this person is not going to buy this domain name. And then some of these other upgrades, the track price feature, I'm looking forward to the day where I get my first notice of that and playing around with that. So that's exciting as well. And then, of course, the registrar. So Darpan, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks, Andrew. It's always a pleasure.
My guest this week has been Darpan Munjal. He is the founder and CEO of Adam. That's a wrap on this week's Domain Name Wire podcast. You can listen to all previous episodes at dnw.com/podcast or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening.